Welcome everyone to another episode of Xtra Bytes. And so I'm Jassi Oberai. Before I introduce you to the panelists and the speaker, just a brief introduction about exploring light. So we are into the field of photography education. We conduct workshops, photo tours. Welcome everyone to another episode of Xtra Bytes. So I'm Jassi Oberai. Before I introduce. Okay. And sorry for that glitch, guys. Anyways, so today's and in these lockdown times, we decided to start some inspirational series by the name Xtra Bytes, and we are inviting speakers whose story is good enough to inspire many of us, all the panelists and all the viewers who are watching such bytes and such streams. So today we have a wonderful speaker with us, DEEPTI Asthana. And I have known DEEPTI Asthana through Facebook from almost 2015, 16, if I'm not wrong. I was trying to figure that out. And I think our first communication happened in 2016. And since then we've been in a way chatting here and there. And so since she has taken the path of a documentary photographer, so I thought that it is better that we have somebody who understands her work properly and much better than I do to actually take this talk forward. And so we requested Dinesh Khanna ji, and he has accepted the request. And thank you both of you for deciding to be a part of this series, this session. In particular, one as a speaker and one as the moderator. And we also have wonderful photographers like Sriranj, Sharmista, and Indrajit, and Jayati as our panelists, so who will help us take this discussion forward. So without any further delay, so let me just hand you over to Dinesh sir for taking this forward.
Muted, no?
Yeah.
Can you hear me now? I think I was muted.
Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. Namaskar. Welcome to this wonderful session of one of my favorite young photographers, DEEPTI Asthana, who I have, admiration for, not just as a photographer. I think that really, honestly, secondary, but for being a very daring and very, I would say, almost adventurous human being. I have been following her and her, I would say escapades on one side and projects on the other over the last few years, and with the deepest admiration, really, because I really think that people who, strike their own path and take their own risks, irrespective of where the destination are people who I have the highest regard and admiration for, and DEEPTI definitely falls in that bracket. And what I really like about the kind of work she's been doing as far as being a photographer is concerned, is that what I have made out from the kind of projects she's done and she's put out in public, whether it's on a website or otherwise, is that she's exploring the world around her and she's exploring her engagement with matters which either tug her emotionally or intellectually, or where she wants her work to make a difference. So that's all I will say for the time being about DEEPTI. I don't want to get into any specifics or any details, and I would leave that to her to provide whatever specifics she wants, and then to talk about her work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that wonderful introduction, especially hearing from you, sir. It means quite a lot to me. I still remember, getting in touch with Dinesh sir in a very act of my desperation to figure out what to do in my journey of photography. I think this must be back in 2014 or I think so. Yeah, then I was starting out as a photographer, and I was already working in corporate, and trying to figure out that what exactly to do. But it becomes very difficult to understand everything, how to get into photography, what kind of photographer you want to be, and also in the sense that how to handle this business side of it. So yeah, I think randomly I sent him message that this is what I want to do and this is what I'm trying to do. By the time I think I've already started Women of India project, and I sent her whatever links I had, but I was completely lost at that time, I would say. So just a formal introduction before we actually start on the talk. Hello everyone, I'm Deepti Asthana. I'm working on gender issues in rural landscape, and I'm a National Geographic explorer. Currently, I'm working on this long-term project, which is about documenting the contribution of rural women and indigenous women in wildlife. So that is the project which is supported by National Geographic Society. The whole reason for me to do this project is because I think we don't get to hear enough stories of where these rural women are coming in front and taking up jobs like this. And this project is very impact driven, and that's why I think the National Geographic Society kind of supported me, because again, their agenda is also very impact driven. So it's just about documenting their stories and encouraging more of these girls to come forward and take up these roles. Apart from that, I have worked on the stories on teenagers in rural village in Uttarakhand. That's one of my long term projects. Apart from that, I'm also working in Rajasthan, which is about two girls, two women who are into wildlife. That's something which I started on a very documentary way. Now it has turning into more of a personal story and their personal life documentation. So that's another project which we will talk about in detail. Apart from that, I do a lot of editorial assignments, and then in between I also do travel assignments and travel work, just to give a variety to myself, because sometimes if you're only working in documentary project, it's very emotionally exhausting and also emotionally taxing, that it's all the time same kind of work. So I try to have a variety, mix it up, so that I don't get emotionally bogged down, and also have some kind of a light travel in between. So this is the brief introduction, I would say. And then yeah, we can how do you want me to start? Do you want me to start with a portfolio, or do you want me to start how I started as a journey on the photography, because that's going
I
to be
think
a
if you could briefly, talk about your journey and, why you thought of leaving the corporate world, what were you doing there,
right.
what were your impulses, how did you want to recreate yourself? Maybe not in too much detail, but I think it will give a platform for, then sharing your work thereafter.
Right. So I would say that photography happened to me kind of late in life. As a kid, I was not really exposed to art and photography. It wasn't kind of an option for me to explore arts. Most of my focus was on academics. The reason being that, it was a very difficult, challenging situation for us economically. And my father wasn't there. He passed away very early, like I was 4 or 5. So it was mostly on my mother to take care of everything, and my mother wasn't very educated, so she was working as a clerk in PWD. So I think it wasn't like it's all about the exposure, what you get exposure as a kid, and for me that wasn't a chance. And there was a lot of things happening in the family at that time. We didn't really have a place to live, so we had to be with my mother's in-laws, and they were not very happy for us to to give us a place. So it was a constant struggle as a child, to see my mother going through these circumstances. And then also as a teenager, it's not an easy place to grow up in a bad neighborhood in a UP. So it was a kind of a very difficult phase in my life personally and as a family. So as a family, we were very insecure. The main motive at that time, I think, it has been just to get a job somehow, and I was very terrified with the consequences, that if I'm not going to study well, probably I might end up being stuck in that place forever. And that was the biggest fear I had. And I could see some of my friends started to get married when they were in class 12th. So yeah, I think it was a lot of pressure to score well in exams and just be good student. So I was a very good student. I was really working hard. The school wasn't very good, it was a government school, but I was trying my best to whatever I could do with limited resources. And I was like, oh wow, I want to be an engineer. That's like a dream. Okay, I want to be an engineer, and that's something which I want to pursue. But then I kind of came out from UP to Tamil Nadu all the way without understanding a word of English. And it was a struggle next 4 years to mix in that different culture, because that's the first time when I was meeting people from different cities, people from Bombay, people from Delhi, people from Bangalore, and also other part of India. So I was terrified that how I'm going to interact with all these people. So you live with these mental blocks all your life, that maybe I'm not as good as the people who are coming from the bigger cities, or the kids who are coming from bigger cities. So it was 4 years for me in BTech was all about the exposure and understanding different kind of people, understanding different kind of culture. And was I think it was the best thing for me to go out of UP and go in this far away land. But then it wasn't something that, again, I was not really venturing out in the arts and anything else. I was mostly keeping things to myself. But at that time I started traveling. So that was such a relief. Like, as a kid you haven't traveled at all, and now you have all these places to go to. So I remember going to all these trips to Uti and Kodaikanal, and just it was used to be so much fun that with limited amount of money you have government bus going over there, and this travel. So I think the travel part started there, that I was very keen curious to what's there. And after that, I got a job in TCS. And but sometimes you feel that you're looking forward to, like, once you get the job, that's it, that's what you want, that's what you have been dreaming for. But when you are there you feel, no, that cannot be my life. Because I'm sure some of you might have worked in corporate. The culture is it kind of pulls you down sometimes. It almost feels like this is not the place for me. So that's how I started to feel from the very beginning in my corporate job. But then you know that that's not what you want to do, but then you don't know that what exactly you want to do. So that was a kind of a challenge. Thankfully they sent me London to for an on-site project, and I think that is where I got exposed to camera for the first time. One of my British colleague, he was a landscape photographer, more of an hobbyist. And then that from there I started to pick up, okay, what's camera? Because for me it was something very big in mind, that you have to be professionally trained to be someone who can be a photographer. You just can't pick up the camera and just go about it. So that was the thing in my mind. Thanks to him, that I thought, okay, now I understand at least the technical part, and I ended up buying a camera for myself. I think it was Canon 550D. Yeah, that was my first camera. It was back in 2013. Yes. So I got the camera, but at the same time I was thinking that what to do with the camera. I was so shy just to hang the camera on my shoulder and go out and shoot anything like people. I just could not do it. So it was kind of difficult. So once I come back, then I started traveling more. Really, a lot of travel. I was in Bombay, and Bombay gives you this kind of freedom to do what you want to do. There's not much of fear about safety and things. So I started to explore more of travel side, and started to take more of travel pictures. And I think that was a phase when I was really into travel photography. But I think gradually I started to look more deeper and deeper what else is photography. And I was kind of very instant drawn to documentary photography. It just felt like, okay, I got something which is like a great tool for me. I think it's very natural for someone who's coming from this kind of background, that you have all these suppressed emotions and you have all these suppressed things that you want to say. And now you have that tool. You have a way. I mean, it could have been anything else also. If it could have been writing also, could have been music also. I think it's just a mere coincidence that it was photography. And then you feel like, oh, now I have way to express things. Now I have way to tell all the stories which are like buried inside me. And I think I was became very obsessive about learning about what are the photographers out there, what is photography. So I was just reading. I was working in corporate and was reading obsessively about photography. And I think, working in corporate and photography, it was kind of a transition for me. I worked almost like a full-time photographer when I was working in corporate. I was using my weekends. I was shooting in the morning and evenings. I was also using my vacations like really well. So I was doing a lot of work already before I could, transit into a full-time photographer. So there's a lot of fear when you are taking this kind of decision. Again, it's all about coming out of those safety nets. So there was a lot of fear in me. It almost took me 2 years to decide to just you already have this cushion, you have this job, and then you want to get into the freelance world of photography, which is so uncertain. So I was so tired of thinking of what to do. I started like noting down all my fears one by one. What if I don't be successful? What if I don't earn enough money? What if I don't actually like being full-time photographer? So I noted down all these fears and I started acting on it. I think that's the way, like, everyone has fears and anxiety when you're about to take such a big decision. So I did it in a very strategic way. Like, okay, what if I'm not liking being a full-time photographer? So I started acting like a full-time photographer even before I was. And I remember that that phase was a very difficult phase for me to tackle because I had this day job and I was also shooting. So I remember being in Amritsar. I was working on this story of women who are into drugs. And at that time I took 3 months work from home to work on all these stories. And at that time I think the drug situation in Punjab was not being talked as much as it has been talked later. And especially finding women who are into drug, it was very difficult. Like no one was ready to speak about it. No NGO was helping me out. There were absolutely no clinic which were only meant for women for the counseling or for the treatment. So I had just no option. I was sitting whole day long with my work laptop outside this government hospital, hoping that some women will come and I'll talk to them. And one or two women would come, but they will have their faces covered. And then it was just funny and sad also because all these men who are into drugs, they will come by and see what is this girl doing with a laptop and taking the phone calls. They will pop up in my video calls from the office. So it was very frustrating and also very funny. But somehow I got the story. I could find one girl who was 21 years old, 21-year old. She was an abandoned girl by her relatives. She didn't have parents, so yeah. So that's the one girl I could find, and I did the story with her. But then that story took really ugly turn. After 3 months, I found out that that girl has committed suicide. And that story I filed for Al Jazeera, and they wanted to publish it, but it never got published because the twist of the events. And I was really shattered emotionally. That it's someone who I've met, and I could see that she was in problem. It's just I didn't have enough time with my IT job that I could be there and help her out with things. And I thought I'm gonna go back, and there were some plans like that, but it just didn't happen. And I think that was the turning point when I feel that you cannot do two things at one time, because you're not going to do justice to any of those things. So yeah, that was probably became like a decision making point for me. Okay, now probably it's time for you to switch into full time photography and do well whatever you want to do. Otherwise it's always going to be like a half cooked job. Apart from that, when it comes to talking about the other fears, I had these fears of not being successful. Thankfully, by the time I left my job, I was already published in BBC, Al Jazeera, Diplomat, Spiegel. So a couple of publications were already have accepted my work. So in that sense, I was confident. Okay, I have cracked this formula, that how to do the stories which I want to do, and then approach them and get published. Because again, I didn't want to work under any other publication or any other company to start with, as a start with. And then I was already exhibited at a couple of places. The serendipity, I think it happened after that. So I had enough confidence thinking that, okay, I think I will manage. Also, I think by the time I was about to leave my job, I was earning 30% of income as, of my corporate earning. So then you have to decide, is 30% gonna be enough for you? Is that, you can manage with? So I did all this calculation in a very strategic way, and I was like, okay, this is the time probably to just go out and try your luck. And if it doesn't work, it's not end of the world. You can always come back. I'm sure that someone could have hired me back in a corporate job. So I think it was a transition, and it was very I was afraid, really afraid, but thankfully I didn't have to look back and think, okay, go back to the previous life. So I can't even imagine that now. So yeah, it has worked well in that sense.
Great. Would anyone on the panel want to ask a follow-up question? Otherwise, Deepti, would you want to talk about your work next?
I want to ask one.
Yes, please.
Yeah, you were saying about this publications in Jazeera and BBC. So was that a photo documentary or was that doing a video documentary?
Oh, that is photo. I have always delved into photos. Video is a very recent thing for me. So it was a photo story.
Okay. So Jazeera, they do. Where do they do these photo documentaries?
They do photo stories. They have this section for the photo stories, which is a separate section. So basically, they publish like 12 to 15 photos along with the captions. It's not a full feature story. It's called photo essays or photo story. I can't recall the exact term, but yes, they have section for this.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Deepti, I have one small question here. That you said that you started as a travel photographer and you continue to do that as well right now because you want to travel. That is your passion. So, but you are now more into documentary photography. So you travel only for documentary photography, or you travel for your travel needs also, or you quench your thirst as a photographer and travel separately for your documentary photography as well?
I think so. I really like to travel. I don't think I have any other big dreams apart from the travel dreams, which are really big. Um, uh, but the traveling for documentary photography is, it's very agenda based. You are going there and you want to cover certain stories. I So the process for my documentary and travel is that I do not search for a story on internet, and I just travel. And if I find someone who I feel their story is interesting enough or I can personally relate to, I stop by there and I do at least my first phase of documentation. And then when I'm doing these documentation, I do not rush. So for me it's like, okay, I'm living there for a week, 2 weeks, or a month, and then I move to the next place or come back. So it's a very semi nomadic way to live. But I really enjoy that, to live out of suitcase kind of situation. um, Sometimes I'm just traveling for the sake of travel, when you don't want to do so much photography, or you don't want to, when you're doing documentation, you have to think really a lot, that okay, what's the story, what's the visual elements, what I'm going to do here. When you're doing a lighter story like a travel story, you don't have to stress so much, you're not thinking so much. You're thinking just about, okay, how I'm going to weave this. In travel also, you can weave the stories, I'm sure so then you're thinking in a very different way, and it's much lighter, and you are just strolling for a morning walk or something like that. Then you are not under so much pressure. So it's both kind. And sometimes I just travel for the sake of travel, like no photos and everything. It's just go around and do whatever you want to do kind of thing. So it's all mixed bag. And yeah, that's how it works. I mean, in that sense, I'm traveling in India a lot for the documentation, but sometimes I really find a way to escape if I get the opportunity to travel somewhere else, and I just go for the travel, come back, file one or two story to National Geographic Traveler India. That's where I keep sending my work very regularly. So I mean, I think that becomes an additional source of income also, because I think as a freelance, it's a very wise thing to do multiple things. And I'm not really into commercial. I don't like shooting weddings or anything else. So whatever I like, I just try to do that kind of work. Maybe I just limit my expenses, but I do documentary a lot, I do travel a lot, and these are the two genres which I'm really invested into.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you. Thank
Mr. has a question.
you. Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, Deepti. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I would like to know, like, how do you pick a story? Like, do you do a lot? Like, are you always on the lookout for stories, and how do you do it? Because it's very interesting for, somebody to understand. Like, how do you go about it?
And can I add a little
Yes,
like a
please.
secondary question to that? Do you try to deliberately keep travel and documentary apart, or do you find that they kind of meet and crisscross at different times, or your travel leads you to a particular documentary subject, or if you've gone for a documentary thing, you find that there's a place which might be interesting for travel? Do you let that become a mishmash, or do you want to mentally and as a photographer keep them apart?
So I'll answer your question first because I think that will be quicker. I think it's always crisscrossing. You're traveling somewhere, and if you keep your mind open, it leads to a story. That's how I see it. You're traveling, you meet people, you talk to them, and sometimes you tell them, "Oh, this is what you do," and they might, tell you, "Oh, this is something interesting," which you can go and talk to them and figure out for yourself. Or it could be other way also, because when I'm going for a documentary project which I've already visited, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go to that village, why not just go a little further, two more villages or three more, because I think I'm very greedy in that sense. It's just never enough for me. uh, did I answer that?
Yes, you did. Now,
Yeah.
Sharmisha's question, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think my process of finding a story is a very emotional call. There is no logic to it. There's just absolutely no strategy to it. It's like, okay, I'm traveling. I met someone, and I feel, okay, this is where I see myself. This is where I see stories related to me, my maybe my mother's story or something. It's very emotional call. There's just no logic into it. It's just, I don't want to tell my story through, turning lens towards myself. I don't want to do at the moment the autobiographical kind of project, but it's always, finding these similarities, these connections, and then I feel, okay, this is the way I can. Sorry, this is the way I can. Why do I listen to the echo of? Okay.
Somebody has. Can you start again? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just, it's just about that, how I can relate to that story, how because that's the only way that I could be personally invested into. If you're working on a documentary, if you're working on the stories, I think that is the main point and more main reason for you to go back to that, how invested you are personally. And that is the only way I think I can be invested personally, that I feel, okay, this is a story I need to tell, and how I'm gonna tell it, because I find some similarities. So I think, I'll probably, when I talk about the work, whether the story of these teenage girls, whether the story of the women in Rajasthan, there is something I see that I feel, okay, this is my lived experience. It could be very different in terms of, how what is the level of experience, that I can't say quantitatively, but I think it's something I feel, okay, it's my lived experience, and I think that's the way for me to tell the story. That is why I'm, whatever documentary subjects I'm choosing, it's very women oriented, it's very, I would say, purpose driven. The photography itself is very purpose driven for me. I mean, I really love that art part of it. I really love, how you can make it really interesting for viewers, or visually you can make it very interesting, because that's very important. But I, whatever else I'm doing, it's like, there's a purpose to it, and that's why I'm choosing one or whatever story. That's why, I mean, I've kept it very limited also. I have now working on two long-term photography projects, and apart from that, it's like some of the stories which I feel, okay, I can just do it for a week. I'm not going to invest months and years of time. because there's no personal investment there. There's no, there's nothing I feel about it. And I think that's the way which has worked for me, because I want to go back and, do that again and again. Yeah, yeah.
Mr.
Yeah, so basically you're saying that it's great to know that, you're so emotionally attached to something that you feel that, okay, I have to do this.
Right.
So the fact that you might not be able to, make it a viable financial, thing, which is of course there at the back of your head, because, we are all independent photographers. So does that ever come to your mind, like,
Not for these project. I don't see these project as a way for me to make money. These are the project which I do because they make me feel happy. Uh, the project which I do, like for 4 days, 5 days, do shoot, come back, file the story, and you are done with that. That's for me to make money. This is like creating work uh, for myself. That's like creating work for your lifetime kind of thing for me. So I don't see them as a avenue to make money. Otherwise, I would rush it. I was like, okay, I'm done with 3 visits. I'm done with my project. Now let's just get it published. Now let's just get it exhibited. Now, whatever you want to do with it, however you want to show the work or whatever you want to do. So I don't want associate my financial goals with these long-term projects.
Jyoti had a question. Jyoti, we can't hear you.
unmute yourself.
You're
You
on
need to
mute.
unmute
Yeah.
yourself.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
As you said that you have no agenda, as in you don't read up stories or find stories on the net. You are traveling and you happen to find a story which connects with you, and you start shooting and you make that story.
Right.
So has it ever happened that you have not been able to complete the story in that visit? So you've gone back the second time, the third time to the same place to complete the story.
Yes,
Must
that's
have,
all. Sorry.
must have happened that way. I mean, you need to go back to the same place.
Oh yes, it
You know?
happened all the time, because in the first visit you can't really do enough work. Also, in the first time you're trying to understand a lot about people. You are trying to understand a lot about, what exactly the story, what exactly the the visual elements are going to be. So there's a lot of understanding phase goes on in the first visit. So usually my first visit is like I don't be too hard on myself, because if you try to do everything in first visit, it's not gonna work out. So first visit is just about understanding people, their personalities, um, their reactions for things, their lifestyle, their routine. So it's more of like, as you start to probably, when you make a new friend, how are you gonna learn about them? So that's more of a learning phase. And then when you come back, and it's not that immediately I feel like, okay, that's the story I want to do. It's a process in my mind that, okay, I've come back. I think one of the stories, maybe till 1 year, I didn't even look it as a story or as a project. For me, I was there, I was just hanging out with these girls and I was having fun and they were showing me places. So it was just that for me. And at that time, the photos come very natural, because you don't have agenda in your mind. If you go with an
Yeah.
agenda, okay, I want to make a story, I need a portrait shot, I need a, this kind of shot, then you are working very mechanically as a photographer, right?
Yeah, and you make a boundary, a strict, you're working within strict parameters.
Exactly.
Okay, has it ever happened that you've gone, you found a story, something that you think you can do a story on, you've come back, though, which is the first visit is almost like a Reiki visit. You've come back, but you've not been able to go back the second time or complete it at all.
No, I don't think it has happened. There are two stories which I was very determined that I want to do it in the long term, and I could go back. There are few stories. I wouldn't say I was thinking of doing it in long term, but sometimes it's very tricky to guess what you want to do in the long term and what you want to do just one visit. There's always this question will be that when should I stop it's just a story but I want to do in a long term. So I think a lot of other projects which I worked on, I was clear, okay, this has happened, I've shot it here once, I've got whatever I wanted to do, and I don't want to stretch it more, because as a photographer you have capacity, and you have to manage your time with everything else which is going on. If you want to take up too many long term projects, you can't do justice to anything. So for me, I feel like, okay, two projects in this nature is working fine for me. And probably what I'm going to pick up now, any long term project I'll pick up in a very different nature itself, because you as a photographer need a variety. If I'm going to pick up another project about a woman, or maybe two women, or something like that, and I do the long term, I'll be exhausted. So now whatever I want to pick up, I'm like, okay, I need something very different in nature, just to challenge myself, just to, you know I'll probably tell the same stories, I'll probably tell the same tell the same kind of stories about women and issues and whatever, but I'll just find another way to tell it, otherwise it will become very boring for me to do the same thing again and again.
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
So would you like to show us your work now? Would you like to talk about a couple of your projects?
Yes, let me try. Okay, I have this problem with my Zoom screen. I'm very technically challenged in that way.
If you
Can
go to the
you?
bottom, you'll see a green square which says share screen.
Yeah, that I have tried, but then when I try to share, it just pops up with I need to provide some grant access, and when I try to do that, it just doesn't
Do
work.
you have the web page open or your presentation open in another window?
Yes,
Is it open already? So when you
yes.
say share screen, then you'll get 3-4 options. And do you see your presentation there?
Let me try again.
Your presentation should be open somewhere on your desktop.
When you share
No,
screen,
it
it should
does
come up.
not give the option. It asks me to grant permission, and that permission is not there.
Or then you haven't
Wait.
given Zoom permission to.
Okay, now I figured it out. Yes.
So just click on that, and at the bottom right will be share.
Okay, it says Zoom.us will not be able to record the content of your screen until it is quit.
Oh no, that means you still have to go into the systems and give it. Would you like me to share your screen for you?
Yeah, I think that will be.
What do you want to start with?
If you go on the website and see their stories.
So 1,000 thorns first.
Yes, I think that should be fine. And just, yes.
I'll just open it. You tell me if you're okay with that.
Right.
Can you see it?
Yes. And if you click on the pictures, you can enlarge those pictures.
That's the first picture. Are you okay with that?
Right. Yeah, it looks good.
So just tell me next and I'll move it to the next one for you then.
Yes. I'll just give a little context of this project. This is the project which I started back in 2018. And I'll just give you an example that how I actually stumbled on the story. So I was traveling for one of the travel assignment with Condé Nast to Rajasthan, and it was a very usual assignment to photograph some of the things in Jodhpur and Jaisalmer. And then I was staying with one of my friends in a village called Ludurva, which is not far from Jaisalmer. And his uncle, just gave this proposal. Okay, do you want to go and visit this national park? And he had some contacts and was like, yes, let's go and see what's out there. Because usually when you are in Jaisalmer, the one of the desert which you get to see is some desert, which is very touristy. So I was like, okay, yeah, let's go to this national park and see what's there. And I think most of the people kind of unnoticed this place, which is called Sudasari National Park. It's not been marketed well by the wildlife of India. So we happened to go there. It was supposed to be a very short visit, and I saw there were two of these women, Rajasthani women. They were working there as forest guards, and when you keep these eyes and mind open, you observe these odd things very quickly. And for me, it was very odd to see, because I know how Rajasthan is. The women are just not allowed to work, no matter what kind of social status they come from, what kind of family they come from. I think probably Jaipur or maybe Jodhpur to an extent is an exception. Otherwise, it's very difficult for women to go out and work, especially in a field like this, which, wildlife, where you have to come so far from your home and live here independently. So for me, it was a kind of a surprising thing, and I could get a minute to talk to them. So when I was talking, there were other men around, and they were not very comfortable to talk to me. So I went to their hut. They have these small thatched roof huts given by the government to stay, and I went to their hut and I started talking to them. And I think in 1 hour, these two women, they told me a lot of their stories. So one of the women, she is 25-year-old. She's a widow, and she has a son. Her name is Pushpa Shekhawati, and she comes from Rajput families. And I'm sure all of you know that how difficult it is for a woman coming from that society to get remarried. That thought is just unthinkable. The other woman, her name is Pushta Pawar. They have very similar name. She has been recently married, but she's living away from her husband, and she has had these. At that time, she didn't have the miscarriage, but when I went back in the next visit, I got to know that she has been through two miscarriages. So these are the women who are kind of struggling with this whole social construct and society, and still trying to do what they want to do. And that is what I find very appealing about these stories, because these are very simple stories. There is no hard hitting fact in it, but at the same time, it's so important to show that how the aspiration of rural women are changing. They are fighting every day to do these, to have these basic rights, that, oh, I want to go to school, and I'm not allowed. I have now been to college, and I'm not allowed to work. So they have these big master's degree, which is so uncommon for a woman in Rajasthan to have a master's degree. So I was just so intrigued by them, and they were telling me that we haven't told these stories to any of the tourists who have come before. So, sometimes people just find trust in you. And also, as a woman, when you are there and talking to them, it's very easy, for them to open up. Because as a girl, when you are coming from that social background, you have so much to say, but you have very few people who would actually listen to them. So they told me this, and I came back to the staff place where everyone was sitting, and I told the uncle that I want to stay here tonight. And he said, no, that's not allowed, because you can visit in a day, but staying at night is just not allowed. I was like, please just let me stay tonight and let me see what is the situation like here. Somehow I couldn't get our guest place, but I could stay with them in their hut for that night, and we just talked through, to understand what's happening, what's their situation like, what's their home like. I could understand all these things, and I just knew immediately that that's the story I want to do. It didn't take me even a day to decide on that. But it's not always the case that you arrive somewhere, you find a story, and you decide in a day that that's the story I want to do. So whatever that visits I made after that, I was very sure that, okay, this is the kind of visual elements I need. This is how I want to shoot this story, and kind of go on about that. So for me, there's just no end to it, about going about this project, because it's just so interesting for me to see how their lives are going to change in the coming time, what's going to happen with them. So it's just very nice for me to go back to. And in the sense that we are very close knit, we are like, so like friends, I would say, that, so if for me it's never a problem to go back and shoot more. If you would just go through the slides, I'll just
Should I
talk
just,
about.
will you just
Yeah.
keep telling me when to?
Yes, yes. So that's Pushta. That's her portrait I've taken. It's kind of very intrigued for me that this woman who wears the sport shoes, but then she also wears in a very traditional dress, and there's all of these traditional elements. This is the borderline, where you still have these parda pratha, where you're still expected to cover your head, but at the same time you're working in a place like that where you're required to wear these shoes, and you are usually wearing shoes because you don't find chappal very comfortable. So that is the day she has just arrived from her in-laws place, and she was still wearing this traditional dress but also had these shoes on. So for me it was like, okay, this is what exactly I want to say. If I have to tell the story in one photograph, this is the photograph for me. The changing aspirations, still fighting the society and doing what they want to do. Next, please. Yeah, and then it's photographing in a very simple way. I don't go into photographing in a very complicated manner. Like, sometimes we get too hung with all these rules, whatever we have studied or whatever we have got to know from people, that you need to have this composition, you need to have layers, you need to have this. I go in a very straightforward way, photographing what I want to photograph, what fits in with my whatever intrigues me as a person. This roof and this fan which is hanging with this tiny rope, and there's so much of dust. I'm just so intrigued by the kind of condition they are living in. It's just so far from everything that they can't even have like a proper meal. This is so minimal lifestyle they are living. So for me this became like a visual evidence of their social status at that point of time. That's the girl who is her name is Pushpa, and she's a widow. And that's the room, the hut I stayed with them. And I mean, for me it's just their life. It summarizes what kind of things they have and what kind of posters and their beliefs and everything. Next, please. Just collecting the visual elements. Next. That's a way for me to metaphorically saying things, that how these women have kind of become hard as cactus, despite all the softness in their heart. Their body and their face and everything is just so hard, as the landscape they have. So it's a way to put it very metaphorical way. Next, please. Next, please. That's again a way to say that how everything else is very old. The societal things, the files and everything, it's just so old fashioned. There's just no computer, and everything is still running on the files. So it's just not about photographing the two people, it's also about what kind of place they are surrounded by. Because when you're working on a long term project, that's also very important, how many times you can shoot two people over the years. You really have to bring in more elements into it. But at the same time, I don't want to complicate the story bringing in more women or bringing in more characters into it. I just want to bring in these visual elements to support my story. Next, please. Next, please. Next, please. Next, please. Next. That's the picture which I really like, that has it's just that shows that what kind of bond they have. It also shows that the sand is everything for them. The sand is where they take a break. The sand is what they use to wash their utensils. The sand is where they play. It's just it, and their dresses are also the color of sand. So it's just one of that moment when they are in themselves and taking a break from their job. Next, please. Next, please. Next, please. Again, that's a very metaphorical way to say, that how, and I think that's where the title come from, A Thousand Thorns, because the trees and the shrubs there are with a thousand thorns, and still the birds find a way to live there. The birds find a way to fly around and come back to the same place, also make nest, though it's not easy for them, but that's their life, full of these thorns and full of struggles, but they still flourish, they still try to achieve their dreams. Next please. Next please. Next please. So that's a photograph which I took in a recent trip. So Pushta have had two miscarriages, and one of the miscarriage was very recent. That's because she was traveling from this place to go back to her home. In one of those vacations, she was traveling with her husband on a bike, and if you know that, it's very bumpy road when you have to cross sand dunes, or you have to, it's anyway very far from Jaisalmer also. So immediately after reaching home, she started to bleed, and then she realized that she has lost her baby. And she was going through a very depressing and sad time when I met her, because it was just so recent. And I was going through a phase in my life too, and it was very helpful for me to be there and talk to her and tell her some of my things and share this moment of grief with each other. So for me, it's just, they're like friends. I can just talk about anything and everything to them, and I feel very lucky that I have such people in life who come from different walks of life. They have this kind of understanding. They have this kind of emotional maturity to understand what you want to say, what you have gone through, and what you are going through. So in that sense, that bond and the relationship is very special for me, and that's why it doesn't feel like awkward for me to go back and shoot more. I'm always welcomed there, and I love that feeling, because if I'm working on a project and I'm not welcomed there as a human being or as a photographer, it will be very difficult for me to pursue. So in that sense, it's just so warm and beautiful to go back and shoot more. Next, please. That's the picture I want to talk about. So Pushpa's husband, actually, he had a bike accident, and that's how he passed away. So I was just so fascinated by her courage, that despite going through such kind of trauma, she's still very inspired to be completely independent and learn how to drive a bike, how to ride a bike. So it's just, these women have these so much of history and so much of baggage on their shoulder, yet they try to be ambitious. They're always very curious, asking me what else can we do, because this is fine, whatever the job we are doing, it's fine, but we want to do more in life. And that is what I love about them, that they are just not happy with what they have. I mean, it's very tricky way to look at. I think I have been that person too. It was could have been very easy for me to be content with the things at different stage of my life, but then I have always been curious about, okay, what's next, what can I do more, and I think that has helped me a lot as a photographer too. So moving forward, please. Next. Yeah, it's again one of those comparisons when I see this beautiful hair flowing. And if you know that there are some bad practices in Rajasthan also, when there's that when there's a widow, they don't allow to keep long hair. They restrict the diet also.
There's a problem with Deepti's connection, huh?
That's what
I can't hear anything.
the Deepti's connection has
Got frozen. Maybe she needs
Mic
to
is
sign
off.
out and sign in.
can
And this time, maybe she can grant access and permission.
can somebody call her? She got disconnected.
Should I call her?
Yeah, I think so.
I am back now.
There she is.
I think the internet is a bit
Yeah, yeah.
unstable. Yeah. That must be the last photo of the slide. Oh, there's more. I know there are a lot more actually. This is a portrait of Pushta, and I think I really love. I mean, that's always an agenda as a photographer to get the portrait of your subject, which really translate their personality and character into a photo. For me, this is the photo in which I feel that I have got her personality and character just right. So I am for me this is the most special photo. Next, please. That's I think they are able to do what they do because of the friendship they have among each other. I feel that they are just they're as good as sisters because they're always there for each other in any problem. So they have known each other for a very long time, and the kind of support they have for each other, and they're doing almost everything together, whether it's cooking, whether it's going for their job, whether it's sharing a place. So they have such a close knit connection, and I want to translate that connection. I wouldn't have liked to have this phone screen, but to be honest, that's the only source of entertainment for them. There's not a very strong connection there, internet connection, but that's sharing the pictures or seeing the older pictures. That's how they keep themselves entertained and occupied. Next, please. Yes, next, please. Next. Yeah, so just small elements of culture. That's very particular thing. The lockets related to Rajasthan. Next, please. Next, please. Next, please. Next, please. Yeah, I think that must be the last photo. Yeah, so that was the first.
Going out on a night patrol, or
Sorry.
would they be going out on a night patrol in this
Um,
case?
yes, sometimes they have to go in the night too. It's very rare that they have to go. Usually, in the night, the patrols are in the day time, but sometimes they have to go just to check if there's some kind of urgent call. I think in this case, they are just going back to their huts, which is a pretty far because it's a very wide landscape. The office is in some other area, the huts are in some other area, so they are just scrolling back to sorry, they are just strolling back to their huts. So that's our first project. If you have any questions, I can entertain those and then move to the next project.
There are many questions on YouTube, but Dinesh sir will can.
A very basic question I just want to ask, and on what basis do they get this job? Since Rajasthan is the kind of place it is, I
Yeah,
would imagine this is the Rajasthan Forest Service.
right.
So are these in any way reserved for women? Would it be tough for them to get the job in the first place?
I think it's not tough in the sense to get into it. So I think every 3 years, Rajasthan Forest Service have these opening for women candidates, and then they can choose different fields wherever they want to work. It could be wildlife, it could be something else also. These two women particularly were interested into wildlife, so they have chosen wildlife. But I was checking with them, are there any more openings this year or last year? So there were not any openings. The openings are closed. So when the openings are gonna come, that's very I think bureaucratic decision. But at the same time, not many women are interested also in this kind of job, just because you have to live this kind of life which is not very comfortable, and also be far away from home. Sometimes family don't allow. But apart from that, I think it needs the kind of education qualification that you need to have, at least a graduate. You need to be at least a graduate. So yeah, that's the way to do it. And I think they had training together, and that's how when they became friends. So they are almost friends for 5 years or more.
So within the job, for instance, they would have had the option, say, requesting for this job in a town or a city.
So some of the jobs which are like that, you can do a back office job. Like they have an office in Jaisalmer also, and they also have an office in Bikaner. So you can do a back office job, and that could be one of the options. I think this girl Pushpa, she is now gonna be transferred to Bikaner and do this office job, but she's not happy about it. Then it becomes like a very 9 to 5 kind of job.
So they did opt for on their own a situation which is at least seemingly much tougher and a more difficult work and living condition.
Yeah, I think earlier it was tougher for them. I think for one of them it wasn't even an option. They were sent here because there was no other women who was ready to come here. So for one of the women it wasn't an option. She was just sent. Uh, but at the same time, now they have started living here and they have for each other. They have this beautiful friendship. So now they are interested to be here. Now they are just fearing to be to be going in a separate direction and doing things on their own. So now they are holding to each other for whatever, wherever they want to go.
And I would imagine the other rangers who obviously would be male, and in
Yes.
this situation, would the relationship and would they feel comfortable with men, considering it's still Rajasthan?
Yes, that's what I feel, that they feel very safe and they feel very comfortable. The staff there is very supportive of these women. That being a women, they are doing that job. That's how people usually see it. So they have very good equation among the men, but there's also you still see a lot of gender inequality kind of events. Like most of the time the women became responsible for for cooking, which is I think not fair. Also, some of the times the women, though they are trained to handle a rifle, but they are not given. Though the junior male staff, they have been given a rifle. So these small elements of gender inequality come in the play, but overall I think they feel very comfortable and safe working with other men.
Okay. Anyone has a question on the panel? Or
Yeah, how do you work the scene? This is more of technicalities on how you do this project. How long did you get this to shoot this? Take this to shoot this?
So I'm not a very aggressive photographer. I'm not that person who will go with a 3 day schedule and feel like, okay, I need to shoot this, this is this. I go as, okay, I need to go and meet these women. And, I spend a lot of time just hanging around, seeing the area, sometimes just cooking, sometimes just, playing around or dancing or whatever. And then in between, I take photos.
Okay, so whenever you
So
feel like you take the pictures.
yes, I'm not I cannot be very aggressive when I am dealing with how I say, I mean they're almost like friends. If I start treating them like, okay, I'm here only to shoot, it will not work for them, it will not work for me. Then I'll feel like, okay, I've come here as a photographer, I'm trying to do my job and be kind of overpowering the situation, because I want these projects to be very collaborative project. They should be very comfortable with what I am doing, and that's why I show them all the pictures when I'm done. See, these women are coming from a very traditional rural families, and they should know what's happening with their pictures, whether they are comfortable or not. If they are not comfortable with the pictures, or if it's going to harm them some way, that really fails my purpose. The whole purpose of telling the story, that it should help them some way. And thankfully it has helped them. Actually, they have been invited for some of the talks in Rajasthan, just to talk about their life when the story got published in First Post. So a small section of photos was published in First Post. uh, the only reason is that I wanted to create an impact out of this and put some of the photos out, and so that people can see what they are doing. So yeah, I mean, I think the last visit was almost for me 3 weeks, and yeah, 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks I was there in the field with them, and 5 days I was in her in-laws place. This girl Pushta, I went to her in-laws place to stay there. I thought it's going to be very uncomfortable for her, because after all that's like very very rural village and very strict household, but they were very happy to have me there, and I could shoot some of the photos there. So I'd never go with a like a planned schedule. I just go with the flow, because that wasn't planned. I was not supposed to go to her in-laws place. That wasn't the part of the initial plan. So yeah, I think I'm very lazy also in that way. I can't be aggressive, shooting all the time. But that's a way to work, when I'm at the same time, when I'm doing my editorial assignments, when I'm doing other assignments, I have no option there. I have 3 days, I have to do a story, and I have to somehow get the pictures done. Then I'll do, right? But for these stories, I'm very taking my time, soaking in the environment, also enjoying a kind of a travel trip. So yeah.
No, this really shows that personal touch. We can feel that personal touch in these images.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would you like to carry on with the next story?
There is, I think, Jayati wants to ask, and there are a couple of questions on YouTube also, so I can once Jayati asks, and
Are they regarding this particular story?
right.
Sure.
Can I go ahead?
Yeah.
Yeah. These two women that you have covered, you've made the story on, they appear to be living in middle of nowhere. So what about the safety issues? And they're going on night patrol, or I mean, that's how the last image shows. So is there anybody who's taking care of their safety, or?
As you said, it is out of nowhere, and mostly I think women feel unsafe when they are middle of everyone, when there are a lot of people around, when there are a lot of when there are a lot of men around. That is when I think the safety gets threatened. Since this place is out of nowhere, and there are just not many people around. You know how many kilometers you walk, you will only see desert, and there's just nothing else. And then the wildlife is also not a problem, because there are no big cats, or there's no I would say nothing which can really harm you. So I feel them, I mean I've lived there for a long time. I feel it's absolutely safe for them, especially the equation they have with the staff is very good. The staff is very encouraging. The staff makes sure that they are happy, and try to fix things here and there. So for as far as I see, it's absolutely safe, and that's what they feel also. I've had this discussion with them, on a personal basis. Do you feel any kind of discomfort, since you are just two women, and your the range officer is men? Do you feel any kind of pressure? But no, it's absolutely safe for them.
Excellent.
Wonderful. So there are a couple of questions on YouTube regarding this project only. There's one by Rudra Singh. So he's wanting to ask a couple of things. Are Pushpa and Pushta getting enough money from what they are doing to make their living, or still it is hands to mouth kind of situation for them?
It is hands to mouth kind of situation, because these women are in a very junior post, and they don't earn enough. And also especially the women who is a widow, she has to send money to her home as well, because she has a son who is 5-year-old. So it is difficult, but I think they're managing it somehow. They're also trying other things. They're also going to write some other competitive exams. So it's not very good economically. They are somehow managing, but I think that's the best option possible at the moment for them.
All right.
But this is a government job, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so they'll get their promotion in time.
Right. I mean, they keep preparing for these, promotion exams. So for every promotion, you have to write an exam, and if you get through that, then you can get to the next post. So yes, they keep investing their free time into studies as well.
Do you check with any mentors about each phase of these projects, like how it's going, or take any advice from someone?
No, actually, I mean, I would love to have someone, who I can go back to on a regular basis. I have a couple of people who I, talk to and just, take their opinion. What do they think about it? Sometimes I need help in the edit and sequencing because it's very difficult to sequence your own project. But the 1% or 2%, uh, no, that's not there. I would love to have someone like that, but no, it's not
No,
there yet.
actually, you answered my question. I was eager to know how you edit, because do you take somebody?
Yeah, because it's very difficult, to edit your own work. So I'm always have these, at least 10 people I know who I kind of go back to just to have this fellow photographer opinion and send work to edit. So yes, in that way, yes.
Okay. There is one more question from the same Rudra Singh. So he says that, though probably I think you've answered it partly, that there could be some men also in the same kind of job or in the on a similar situation. So is there any discrimination going on there, in like within men and women working there? Maybe not very near to where they are position, but maybe in a similar kind of job profile.
I think those are the two noticeable difference I felt in my experience there. That it's kind of a power play when it comes to whether it's driving the jeep or whether it's handling a rifle. I think these women are really capable of doing it. It's just sometimes it probably other people do not feel very comfortable about handling them, letting them handle such things. And I don't see a reason why, because I think they are really smart women. They are very capable of doing different things, but it's just the mindset comes into play, which is the very traditional Rajasthani mindset that what is allowed and what is not allowed to women.
All right. And there's a third question by Yogesh, and I think I would also like to add on to that, extend that question, is that did this kind of story on both these women help their cause in any which way?
Help there.
Cause, like, did it help them in any way to better their lifestyle or get more limelight? Or,
Yes. So as I mentioned that they have been invited for a couple of talks in Rajasthan to talk about their work.
yeah.
And I think that's also very encouraging, because sometimes it's very difficult as a woman to feel that you are significant. And that's something which, I have kind of, felt all my life, that, when you come from that kind of family and that kind of background, you always feel that you are not important enough. Your existence is not important enough. So just to feel that confidence in you, no, my work is important, my voice is important, I have something to say, to contribute, or probably to inspire other women. I think that's a big thing. So I see that change in their the way they talk and some of the interviews they have given. I feel that they have kind of become more confident. And sometimes even in the discussion at home, there are so many ways that people can pull you down, making you feel that you are not doing something important, or your existence is not important enough. So when you overcome by these things, I feel that's the biggest thing. And then you can do many more things, because now you're open, you are feeling that confidence in you, you feel my life has a value. Then you can start to explore many more things. And that's how I feel about these women, that they are kind of in that phase where they realize a lot of things about themselves, which probably they haven't realized. Because now everyone who they are meeting, they have started to call them daughter of the dunes, and that was the title of the story which published in first post. So
Great.
it kind of feels great when your community, your people, they recognize you. Oh, I've seen your story got published. That's a kind of very good feeling. And yeah, I mean, I would have liked to do more things, but I think it's better if it comes naturally. It comes in a gradual way to their, in a very gradual way, and let's see how they feel and how they go about it.
Perfect, perfect.
And this is the project which is also part of the National Geographic grant. And, you know, that's the one story I pitched and another story I pitched. So I think that grant is very impact driven. So, you know, that's kind of a process that, you know, once your stories are done, how you're going to circulate the story in the local communities. So I really have to, at some point of time, I really have to wait to push these stories more in Rajasthan, and other story was done in Gujarat, push it through the local community, push it in the local NGOs, so that these women get more recognition and they get more, you know, platforms to speak about their lives, so that more women can encourage and probably join their life or path.
Great, great. Thank you.
Should we move on to the next? Sharmishta, you have a question?
No, I don't have a question. Actually, I want to really congratulate Deepti on this story, because, and I also think this is why you presented in, this is your first story, because I think this really impacted their lives in a very positive way.
Right.
And I think it will probably, you know, make anyone who sees these pictures, especially people like her, to sort of, you know, take up jobs like these, which are so, I think, the space is very male dominated, if I may say this.
Yeah.
Right, right.
I think this story is very important to you, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a thing. Like, that's a way to go forward. I think I have done so many things in my life just to see other women doing things. I remember that when I was starting out in photography, the only women photographer I know was Aarti Kumar Rao, and I was just so inspired. Like, I never got the chance to meet her by that time, but I was just so inspired seeing her, that, you know, if a other woman can do this, why can't I do this? You know, it will probably require more hard work. Maybe I'm not as skilled as you know, she was or she could have been, but, you know, you see this bleak possibility that, you know, there could be a possibility, and that's very inspiring, that, you know, why can't I do these things? So I think that's the way, you know, for these women to go forward and talk about their job, and maybe other women can join. And now we are saying about, okay, this kind of job is not so common, and maybe that will.
Oh,
I think she's gone off again.
yeah.
She'll be like, oh, I want to be a teacher. And why does she say that? Because she has
Deepti, your video is frozen. So in case you can hear me, can you do something about it?
I think she'll have to come on again, I think.
It probably is a buffering issue because her internet connection is not, there she is. Deepti, we lost you for about a minute there. So in case you want to repeat what you said.
okay, I was just saying that how is it like, you know, exposure is important at this level. I was just giving an example that, you know, if you ask a little girl in a village that what you want to be, she will always say, I want to be a teacher, because she has only seen women working as a teacher. You know, she has not seen women working as a collector, or women as a police, or a sarpanch. So unless there is one or two women are there to become a role model for other girls, it's very difficult to even dream about it. Like, I could never dream about that can be a photographer, because I've never seen a women in my circle being a photographer when I was a kid. So in that sense, it's you know, it's a way for them to encourage, move forward, and provide a platform so that they can talk about confidently about their life, their work, and probably inspire more girls in the village.
Are you presenting Dhanush Kodi work?
No, not today.
Should we carry on?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Tale of Two Girls?
Yeah.
Should I go to the first picture?
Yes, please. Sorry, my internet connection is a bit of could be a bit of an issue, because it's raining quite a lot since last 10 days.
Oh, wow.
In Shillong. Yeah, it's very weird, but it's such a heavy rain. Pre-monsoon shower is not supposed to be like this.
Here also it's raining, but here it's raining booze.
Right. So talking about this story, so I'll give you an example that how this story was not something which I could decide on that I want to do as a long-term project. So I was visiting this village in Uttarakhand in the Kumayu region, and I got to know about these two girls. They were living very close to the place where I was stay put in a guest house. And like I was just going for a morning stroll, and I saw this hut, which was a beautiful stone hut. And as my curiosity led to their hut, and I was like, oh, "Who's there?" And I started to talking to this family, and I saw there were just two little girls. And I asked them, "Do you want to come for a stroll with me? I just don't know this area, and it's the middle of the forest. I would love to have a company if you're not going to school." So they just hung out with me. And at that time they were really young. At that time they were 13, or yeah, they were 13 or 11, I guess. The other one was 11. So we just went out in the jungle, and they took me to all these beautiful places where they go to play, like waterfall and the top of the mountain. So I was just I would say traveling, what had no agenda. But I started taking picture of these girls, and those pictures were not meant for a documentary project or a long-term project or something. It was just photos of these girls as we were having fun. And when I came back, I didn't look at those pictures for a long time. I think after 1 year or something, I was thinking of, okay, maybe this could be a project. Maybe there's a story which I can tell. It did not immediately strike me. And by that time, there were some grants opening for this organization called Focus Scotland. And they were funding 3 artists from India and 3 artists from Scotland. And I applied for that grant, and I got accepted there. And that became a motivation for me to go back to, since this is the first documentary project I started on. And when I go back second time, I was very clear in my head that what story I want to tell. So this is a story about two teenager girls who live in hills. And sometimes it's kind of an assumption for people from outside that the life in the mountain is beautiful. The people who are living in mountains, it's just living in such a heavenly place. But if you look close, then you start to realize that there's so many problems they go through, especially women and girls. There's a huge amount of responsibility. I'm sure everyone is aware of this migration problem in Uttarakhand, and people just didn't have enough job, and there's not enough resources to hold back people. So most of the time the men, they move to the cities like Delhi or Mumbai to find work, and then now it's women left who have the most of the responsibility to take care of household, to take care of the children, also to make extra money, because the money the husband sent, it's just not enough. So and then most of the time they are cooking in wood stove, and the smoke from those these wood stuffs, it's just so harmful for their health. And I see they have these tiny houses. It's always filled with smoke because they're cooking at least 3 times in a day. It's always filled with smoke. Even at the night time when they're going to the bed, the smoke is still hanging around. So it's very easy to say and think, oh, mountain life is just amazing. But when you start to spend more time, you understand it's such a hardship, especially even for these teenagers who are they have responsibility of their siblings. They have to get up early in the morning and take animals out. This girl Manisha, she's cooking the dinner for the family. So they have, thankfully they're going to school, but apart from that, their time, they have such a strict time schedule. I was just very thankful that they could spend time with me and play around, and that kind of became an excuse for them to play more. So every time I go back now, they are just so happy to see me, because now they can tell their mom, the Didi has come back and we just gonna spend more time with her. So for me, the angle of the story was that I don't want to show that hardship they are going through, but I want to show, what is, how do they find escape from their hard life. And their escape was this forest, which is beautiful forest surrounding them. And again, it's a very relatable thing for me that, when I was going through so much as a kid, and feeling unsafe most of the time, I had the escape to go to my aunt's place, which was in Lucknow. And she had this home which has this backyard garden. She has these guava trees and mango trees, a very raw sort of place. I shouldn't call it a garden. And that used to be my place to escape all the time. Like, I would wait for my exams to be somehow over, and next day I'll be like, okay, I need to go there. Either she'll come to pick me up, or I'll find a way that someone should go and drop me there. So that was used to be my escape all the time. So the story kind of became about the escape, that what is their escape. And even in today's scenario, this is my escape. When I'm going from Delhi, or when I'm going there from Bombay, this hill, this beautiful forest is my escape. So when I'm there, I'm just there. I'm not thinking of how quickly I'm supposed to do the story. I don't have a strict schedule. I'm just there and photographing, and whenever I feel okay, I need to probably go back because some assignment has come or there's something else, then I come back. So if you go through the photos, please. So it's just a very simple story to document these small details of teenage. How they are children, and how suddenly they are, also kind of now behaving like a woman, since they have come to that age. Go through, please. Next, please. And again, the friendship, the connection, the beautiful bond they have, always hanging out together. There's this kind of a similarity between the first story and second story, since you always see two girls and two women together. But I think that's very meaningful. I think personally in our lives, a lot of people can relate to that, how you find this beautiful connection and safety in other women, in another girl. Next, please. Yeah, so for me it's just collecting these small visual elements of their playground, I would say. These are the gumboots they wear in the rain, since it's very common to have the leeches in the forest in the rainy season. So they wear these gumboot, and suddenly it was just too many leeches there, so just they threw the gumboots in the water to wash it all off. Next, please. Next, please. So that's how they go to to their school every day. That's like a trek, almost of 4 kilometers through the forest, from each side. Because this place is not really a village exactly. It's middle of nowhere. It's in the border of Pithoragarh and Bageshwar district. So for them, it's kind of a struggle every day to go to school, especially in monsoon, because monsoon is a very dangerous season in Uttarakhand. Next, please. Next. So I mean, I think there's a lot. There's not much of explanation there in these photos. It's just about, because even when I'm captioning this picture, I don't like to caption this, because I feel if I try to explain too much into these pictures, it will lose the beauty of it. It is just about capturing these small elements of childhood, and also this transition of them behaving like more mature. I remember this is the time when in 2016 they were still behaving a lot like child. And now when I go back to their behavior has slightly changed. Now they are more aware of them, of how do they look, about their skin color. In some of the pictures, you later probably you'll see some of the makeup also. So I just love these transition and details in them. It's like seeing your own siblings or my nephews or something, that they are kind of changing slightly as they grow older. Next, please.
If I may just say so, that for me, I always say that photography is a language, and it's photographs like this which you only look at and you feel, because the minute you add words or a caption to them, you diminish them actually.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So you can keep going. This is a recent picture. These two were the recent pictures.
I want to know when you're approaching a new project or a story, are you evolving as a photographer? Sorry, I'm become I sound very inhuman because everybody's asking about the story, whereas I'm asking more about the how the image
No, I think
processing.
it's very relevant to ask
Yeah.
that
So
question.
do you evolve yourself in each project, like the way you see, the way you approach? Because I see there's a visually, it is a more different kind of imageries than what I saw in the previous.
Yes. I think these two projects are going simultaneously, but I deliberately wanted to have a different visual approach so that there should be some kind of I can distinguish both these projects. But every time, I think when I was starting on this story, I was just capturing very natural moments. I was not, again, I could not be very aggressive when I'm dealing with these little girls. I cannot be aggressive. So I was just capturing these small moments wherever I feel like, yeah, they are completely into themselves. They're completely enjoying the moment. And I think as you learn more, now I have been to this, photo schools and I've attended a few workshops. You start to think more strategically, which I absolutely hate, because the moment you start to thinking too much like a photographer, you ruin the whole story, you ruin your practice. So it's very important
That
to,
should be recorded and underlined, what you just said.
I think it's,
Probably the single most vital thing you'll say in your talk today.
yeah, it's just like you're learning too much, and when you're learning too much and then you become too much of a photographer, and then you see too much of photography in the project. And so it's a very important process that you learn and maybe try in some of your assignments. And then when you're doing a work like this, then just forget whatever you have learned and just become that raw photographer who just who photographs just for the feeling of it, for the happiness of it, and just go by the flow, go by your heart rather than going by your mind.
I think that's very important across I think all genres as well, because photography is all about capturing that emotions and feeling what you feel that you capture. And the imagery that I see personally, if I look back into your previous project, that was, as you mentioned, it was very minimal in almost every respect. The way you had captured those images, the way the barrenness actually showed on those images with your minimal processing, everything was minimal, and that was very stark, the raw, and everything was very stark yet simplistic. And here also, what you are trying to show is very I think depicting the story with your with a few elements here and there that is a part of their integral part of their life. And I think that is where photography, I do not think that it takes a back seat. It actually takes the front seat, because now you are talking photography non-technically.
Right, right.
You're taking technical things behind you. You're keeping that beside you, and you're moving ahead with showing the emotions and capturing the moments.
It's I think more about capturing the emotion and the situation rather than the technical part, I guess.
Yeah.
So I mean, and that's how I see it, that as a storyteller, your prime purpose is to tell a story, right?
Absolutely.
And if you are able to get those emotions right, because when I'm telling these kind of projects are very purpose driven for me. The purpose is to get these stories out and tell the people who might not have chance to see these live and been exposed to this kind of culture up close. And I want to tell that story and let people feel and being drawn to it. And I want to do it in a very simplest way, in a very simplest way. For me, the most important thing is to get the emotions right. I'm not worried about how, if this photo is technically correct or not, if this is this following any kind of rules or not. If you're able to feel their world, if you're able to feel what how they are as girls, how they're as teenagers, then my purpose is done here. So that has been my approach so far. But again, as I said, that as a photographer, I would love to try more visual language. I would love to experiment more things. So far, for me, this has worked very effectively. It communicates the story and it communicates the emotions.
Right, right. Yeah.
Deepti,
Yes,
when you go and meet these people you are meeting for the first time, you are talking to them, you are establishing a connection, and when you start shooting them, do they wonder? Do they ask you why you are shooting them? What you're going to do with these
yeah,
pictures?
all the time. All the
Mm.
time. So I tell
Yeah.
them, I mean, I think in this case, the girls are little younger to understand, but the other story, these women are, they are able to understand the full-fledged nature of photography, and they are on Instagram, so they know what I'm doing with the pictures and how I'm posting it. So they are completely aware. In the case of these girls, because these are the minor, these the parents are accountable kind of to understand full-fledged, and I try to make them understand that this is what I'm trying to do through my project. I
Yes.
want to show the life of the girls, and how they are living, for people to understand, and what's the beauty of teenage girl, and also what's the hardship of teenage girl in the mountains, like that. So it's a very, very genuine and common fear for them, both Babita and Manisha, that they will not be allowed to study further after class 10th or 12th, and that's the constant fear they live in. In fact, Babita's elder sister Pooja, she was married at the age of 17 when she really wanted to study. So this is the kind of fear they constantly live in, and it's very important to tell these things, through your stories. It's just that I want to take a different angle and keep people engaged in the story, and also provide these, details through text or through some other way. So yes, that's my approach, towards this project.
If they're going through hardships, do they expect that you will be able to help them with through your photography or the work that you're doing? Because I have faced a similar kind of situation where I was expected to uh, get them out of their situation through this photography that I was doing, on the photo story that I was doing on them.
Not in these two projects. In this project, I think the girls are younger, and also I think I didn't had to make this effort to make a connection. It was just very natural for them to just be with me and play with me. I think the only expectation they have from me is just to come back early, and every time I have to lie that I'm gonna come back next month, but I know that I can't go back, because for them it's just a different life they live with me, because now they have more time to play. So I don't think they have any materialistic expectations in that case. The other two girls, I had a very honest and open conversation with them that as a photographer, as a documentary photographer, I am not allowed to help you in any way through money. That will be against my profession. But other way around, like, if I can get more opportunities, maybe some talks, maybe some other platform, I will do whatever I can do. But it's just that I cannot deal in the money, or I cannot deal in the material exchange of gifts. In fact, they are the one who really want me to get a dress, a Rajasthani dress, and I said I'm really, really thankful, but I just cannot accept any gifts, because it will become questionable, because this is a documentary project.
When you're
Great.
doing a project for Nat Geo, so are you expected to deliver certain images in certain period of time?
Yes, they have the timeline. And they had the timeline. Now, because of COVID, everything has been on hold, and I have not been chased up so far that when is that gonna happen. But you have an option to provide a deadline, and it has to be done within a year. So that is the kind of model they have, that you propose a project, you give them a plan, you give them a timeline, you also provide them that how and what you're going to do with the project. So as I mentioned earlier, that net geo projects are very impact driven. So you have to give them a proper plan, that how exactly these images will be used, where they will be published locally, because they are not interested getting these projects published internationally. For them, it has to be published locally, so that the local people, the audience in India should read about this. uh, Right. So that's how they go
And
about it.
do they monitor your progress, how it is going about, and
Um,
do they tell you this is not working, do something else?
I think you can have a lot of freedom as a photographer. It's not that kind of grant or project where you will be exactly told what you should do. Since I have already done two stories, one in Rajasthan and one in Gujarat, they understand my nature of photography and nature of work, and I think I have a lot of freedom what I want to do. Like I propose that I'm gonna do five such stories, but they would not come back saying, okay, which five stories, where do you want to do it, what kind of woman you want to pick up. So I have a lot of freedom there, that how I want to do it, because since it's my personal ambition that I only want to pick up women who are into rural places, and also some of the indigenous women probably from northeast, since I'm here now. Because that is what is important in this. If I pick up someone who is already famous, who is already doing conservation and environment work, because it's very easy to find them. You just Google 10 women who are working as environmentalist or conservationist. It's very easy to find them. The hard part is to find the right women who have not got this kind of exposure, and who has the potential to inspire the community around them. So that's my approach for the project, and I haven't done anything after getting the grant money, which puts a lot of pressure on me, that when is this COVID situation gonna be over and I go back to field and start working.
Should I carry on with the photographs?
Yes, please.
Is that the last one?
uh, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is a small edit here, which I keep for website. There are more photos, but I think it's not wise to put everything out there at once. Especially when you want to make an edit and sequence, it will be difficult if I put 50 photos out there. So yes, this is a small edit, and these are the two long-term projects which I've been working so far.
I think they're amazing. They're very striking to me.
Thank you.
You know, Deepti, you are very original.
Yeah, very original.
The way you talk is coming from your heart.
Right.
It's the first time I'm seeing you live, and your images speaks exactly as you speak.
Right. Right.
It's very original and it's very fresh.
Yeah, I think it took me some time to have that confidence to get on a public platform to, speak. Especially, I've struggled with my English all my life, so it's just not very, very comfortable. But I think the best way to deal with this to be original and don't rehearse too much, and that way, your natural flow, your natural words would come out.
Be that way always. Huh?
Yeah.
Don't start rehearsing. So what are you working on now?
Now
You don't have to tell us the details, but that you're in Shillong and what got you there. It's just as a continuum of what your life is.
Right. So at the moment, I actually came to Assam for an assignment with an international NGO. I was supposed to photograph something in the Bodoland, and I was just so excited. Oh, I'm going to Bodoland for the very first time. I've only heard about it, and that's again one of the places where you don't see any news about. And when you go to the place like this, you are just exploded with the ideas, you are just exploded with the kind of people you meet. So I feel like I don't want to go from this place. I can do so much being in Bodoland, because this is a region which has seen insurgency for so long. So many people lost their lives, and the widows are there, and there's just so many stories I can't tell you. Such a complex region. So I got to meet very relevant relevant people there since I was working with an NGO there. I got to meet such very relevant people, and they put so much information in my head in just 4 days that I was like, wow, I don't want to go back from here. But suddenly this COVID situation, rose very quickly, and I thought that's not the best place to be. And I had to come to Shillong to meet one of the activists who is also environmental activist. Her name is Agnes. I forgot the last name, but she is the woman who got attacked very badly in 2018 because she was working against the coal miners in Meghalaya. So she is the person who I came to meet and interview. I thought once I'm done with that, I'll probably go back to Bodoland. But I came Shillong for 3 days to meet her. And that never happened. I haven't met her yet because of lockdown. And then I'm here for almost 2 months in Shillong. It's not a place where you feel stuck because it's just so amazingly beautiful. The house where I'm living, it's like a dream kind of house. I have this lovely garden outside. There are 4 5 dogs in the house, and there's a beautiful room. In fact, I have this whole first floor of the guest house to myself, which is this is like one of the oldest building here. It used to be a museum, a natural museum, before it was converted into a guest house. And the lady who owns this place, she is a woman activist and a writer. So you know how this luck plays a role sometimes in your life, that you end up meeting the right people. And she gave me a couple of books to read about Northeast, which is written by the activists and writers who are from here. And then when you start to read stories about Northeast, I'm like, why people are not doing enough project in Northeast? Why don't we see enough stories from here? Why is everyone going to Kashmir? Why is everyone going to Jharia? And that has always been, I mean, I should not be telling people what to do. Everyone has their own vision. But I feel there's so much of centralization of story that everyone kind of get attracted to, which kind of get attention, a lot of attention on international media. But as a community, it's our responsibility to see that there are other stories, there are other problems, there are other issues. And if we start kind of open up to other ideas and stories, I think then we can kind of comfortably distribute ourselves in different regions and work on the places which need urgent attention. So now I'm just so fascinated to meet all these people and be here. I think I'm not gonna come back to Delhi anytime soon. I'll probably be here for some time and meet more people and try if I can find something relevant here, which can turn into a long term project, hopefully.
Well, one thing I just want to go back to, which you said, and which is going to be stuck in my mind because it comes from my heart too, is that I don't want to photograph like a photographer. You want to photograph like a human being. Uh, and then you went on to add to the fact that you get, you go to workshops, you get training, you get educated, and it's also then you have to in a way unlearn that. The fact is that you have been through what one would say a lot of young photographers would kill to get a chance to go and do that kind of course in the West. So do you want to just kind of relate that to this, or just talk about that experience? One, how did you come about to wanting to do that? How did you get that particular grant? And what was the experience there? And lastly, of course, how does that relate or unrelate to what you are as a photographer now?
So I think, I mean, I have been and in that side of phase when I was thinking maybe I'm just not doing enough. Maybe I am really stuck at just understanding things in from a very narrow perspective. I don't have the right exposure because I was constantly thinking of people who are studying in Pathshala. That is the only photography school I knew at that time, and I could see there's some good work coming. But it just, it's very difficult to invest money into photography. It's not a profession which is like, okay, I'm going to do MBA, I'm going to come back and earn a lot of money, and my loans will be done. It's not that kind of profession that you invest a lot of money. I mean, people have, it's a very individual thing. That it was very difficult for me to decide that should I just invest that kind of money, go to a school, have a proper training, and then probably, do photography. And I dwell into that idea for a long time. I talked to a lot of people who have studied in Pachala just to gather their views. What do they think about the school? but I could just not decide, just because there's a money investment into it, and photography I could see at that time that not gonna pay me that amount of money. So I think most of my photography experiences have been self-taught. Lot of a lot of obsession about reading and about knowing other photographers. How did they start their career? And how did their arc change in their professional life? So I have been trying to stalking people like really obsessively in their social media, and also at the same time reading a lot about photography, watching a lot of YouTube videos. But I think this reading, learning, everything is fine, but unless you go out and work, nothing is gonna work. No matter how much you read, no matter what you work, the workshops you attend, it's all about going out and working. That's the only key. There's no other secret formula about it. So I think having that field experience to work on the hard stories, and also starting on these softer stories, both kind of experience I have had. So I also had this very clarity in my mind. Okay, what kind of stories I want to do? Because these kind of questions you have to ask yourself throughout your journey as a photographer. I mean, it could have been very easy for me to just keep doing travel photography, because at the same time I was fairly successful in my career as a travel photographer. I was getting published, I was getting all these media trips and assignment, I was also doing blogging thing. And it's very common for them to have like this top blogging thing. I was already in the listing and stuff. But at the same time, you really have to ask yourself so many questions, that why are you doing what you are doing? Is that the kind of life you want to lead? Is that the kind of photographer you want to be? Because when you're asking yourself, I think you cannot lie, because people would also ask you this question. But when you're facing yourself, I think then you will not lie. You are gonna tell the truth. This is not the life I want. This is not the kind of photography I want to do. So in that sense, the self-taught process and working on the field has taught me a lot of things. Just have to clarity just to have this clarity of my mind, the kind of work I'm gonna produce. By the same time, this the DMJX, I'll tell you about DMJX. It's a school in a city called Aarhus, Denmark. It is probably one of the finest journalism school. People from even United States come and study there. The only reason I think why that's so famous, because the teachers there, the faculty there, they are just amazing people. And it's not a typical American journalism school. They give you a lot of freedom, the kind of work you want to do. They really care about your voice. They are not teaching you this standard photojournalism techniques. So that was a very beautiful thing, that you can delve into different kind of either a documentary or maybe some other ideas on concept. You can really try different stuff there. So I didn't know much about it. And when I was traveling in Rajasthan to one of these project which I showed you, one of my friend, he sent over the link saying yeah, please apply kar dijiye. And I was like, अभी मैं यहाँ पे internet कहाँ से ढूंढूं और क्या करूँ? So I copy pasted something and I sent over the application. So what photos agency 7, I hope all of you know that photo agency 7 is one of the very renowned photo agency in the world. They support two students every year to go to this school and complete a semester there, which is like 6 months of course. And I was one of the chosen one. Another boy came from Bangladesh. So we were the two people, and yeah, it was a very surprising thing. Like I did apply in such a hurry because just the resources were very limited at that time, and I got selected, and that was like the most I think the best thing happened in that sense, because they cover everything. They cover your scholarship, they cover your stay in Denmark, because Denmark is exceptionally expensive. Europe is expensive, but the Nordic countries are very expensive. So they cover almost everything, and even your travel expenses will also be covered. So when I went there, it was a small class of 10 students, and again a very good exposure for me as a photographer, because all of these photographers were coming from different part of the world. Some were from United States, one was from Finland, one was from Iran. So a very good class, I got to see so many different kind of style of photography, so many stories. And when you have such a small class, because they don't allow a big class, they only keep a handful of students, you have a very intimate relationship when you are working with these stories together, when you are working on a projects together. So my whole purpose, my agenda and my mind is to experiment as much as I can, because if I'll do the same things which I've been doing before, it will really not make sense. So I really try to experiment with the kind of photography I want to do, the kind of subjects I want to explore. So I really went out of my way, working on trans and gay stories. I've never done that before, and I thought it will be very difficult for me to work on something like this in India, since I'm not experienced in that. So I stayed in Copenhagen for some time to cover this story. And I was just happy to, learn, because it's just not about photography sometimes. It's also about learning and being exposed to different things. Until you're exposed to different things, you will not know what is right for you and what is wrong for you, what you are personally touched to, what matters to you. I did that story, but it's not something which is my personal agenda, that okay, I'm only gonna work on trans and gay story. It was wonderful knowing them, it was wonderful working with them, but it's not something that I want to really deep delve into. Maybe some point of my life, but that's not something which I feel right now. But at the same time, working on their story, I got exposed to so many things. I hung out with them all day long. These the five people, who one is lesbian, one is gay, one is trans, one is a straight woman. They were all living together, and I just hung out with them for 2 weeks. I went to gay bars, and I saw all different kind of things which I've never seen before. So for me, these experiences are very enriching. It's not that the story got published to many places, and I don't really care at that, at this point of time. For me, is these experiences do matter more than, and my capability to photograph that as good as I can. And then I really wanted to learn multimedia. I was like, okay, I have never been exposed to working with videos, and somehow I'm not a person who's very technical. Like, I don't know how I manage the camera somehow, but I'm not the person who will get the lights perfect, who will get. I always work with natural light. I still don't know that how flashlight works. I somehow manage when I need to, but I have no idea about the technical things of photography. So for me, video in my mind was such a big thing. Like, how I'm gonna handle the sound, how I'm gonna handle so many equipments, and also work on the story. So it took me a lot of thought, whether I should do that or not. But I took up the story that I want to go to Italy and work on the story of this priest, who was a scientist earlier, and now he has become the priest. So for me, again, it's a story which mattered a lot. I was just so intrigued that this guy, who's 32 in age, has been scientist all his life, and suddenly he is a priest. That's something which I want to do. I don't care if I get the video right or I don't get the video right. I just want to do that. And because of that story, I got to live in a I don't know what's that place called in English, where all the all these priest men live together, because the women are not allowed to live there. So I lived there in Rome with them for almost a week, taking the videos there. And then I went to Milan because his school was there. And then I went to his family home near Bergamo, which is in the north of Milan, to live in his family home and do the more shoots there. So that was a long project, because that was my final project for DMJX for 6 months. And that was very daunting, because I'm dealing with the videos for the first time. I'm traveling in all these three cities in Italy, and working around and getting everything on my own, the sound, the camera, the tripod. It was just very physically taxing. Thankfully, I got the video right. I also got A+ for that, but that really doesn't matter, because the kind of experience I had just to work on a video and a story was very, very enriching for me. And I think that's where the personal connection came also, and the story that he dealt into this problem of being a scientist, being fairly successful, but also realizing that's not what I want to do. I want to be a priest. And coming from a very well-off family, the family got complete in shock. So just to listening his stories and trying to get that transition in a video was such an enriching experience. So that was my whole agenda for in 6 months, just to try things which I've never tried before, which I've not been exposed to, and come out with something and come back with that knowledge and apply that knowledge in the project which I'm doing here. So probably when next time I'll go back to these long term projects, I'll probably do a multimedia piece. I'll start also doing videos there. If I do an exhibition, I think that will be wonderful at some point of time, that I can also now bring in all the beautiful sounds of hills and visuals of the hills. So yeah, I think it's good to let it experiment with things when you're going to a school. It wasn't very strict school, so I could get to do a different things and get to travel a lot. I just didn't want to be in Denmark and only do the stories which were based out in Denmark. So I experimented with everything I could in my capacity. But at the same time, I think I was doing okay as a self-taught photographer also. It's just when you have these kind of opportunities, your process, your learning just speed up. You're just learning like this because you're under pressure. I have to create this full length video documentary project in a month. How I'm gonna do that? If I have to do it now on my own, I'll probably take 6 months. So it kind of, it's good for all the lazy people out there who takes forever and ever to work on your personal projects. At the same time, these friendships which I made there with just such beautiful people, and such beautiful friendships I've had there. But there's so many people who have not had the opportunity to get into these kind of colleges or schools. It really it's not gonna, doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. I know so many such good self-taught photographer, also people who are working as a, they have some other day job and they're doing wonderful photography. Indrajit himself, Saurabh Ghosh, these are the people who I feel like, how are they managing everything? They are managing their jobs, they are managing the family, they are managing the photography, and also very accomplished. I don't think I have the same kind of efficiency like they have. So sometimes for people who work in these limited resources, I think it works well for them. It really works for them. It's a very kind of example. As a kid, when you get everything, you don't make use of those resources. But when you have limited resources, you work hard to reach somewhere. That's how I see this.
Absolutely.
Okay, Indrajit,
Yeah.
take it.
Yeah. One thing I want to ask you, uh, recently I'm shooting one documentary film, and as you said, the video and what I realized was that when it matters to telling a story, audio and video gives more precise impact than the photograph. I mean, photograph can be misread, but the chances of videos are more precise, and audio adds some more dimension to it.
Right.
So, what do you think about it? I mean, because due to the mobile cameras and iPhone can record 4K videos, so documentary making is also pretty cheap, and you have lots of online platforms right now to publish the documentary. So, what was your thought on video and audio? I mean, if you compare the photograph and the video documentary, so what are your thoughts on this?
I mean, as you said that it's very precise way to tell the story. You don't leave much for the interpretation of viewers. You're kind
Yeah,
of giving them all the information. You are telling them a precise story. You are giving them the visuals. You are also giving them the sound. You are giving them everything, and that is probably what I don't like about that medium. That you are just giving too much. You are not leaving anything for viewers to interpret. Uh, so efficiency wise, it's really, really efficient. From the art point of view, I am not very keen on that medium. I think I did video and I like the experience of it, but it's not something which had, like, really had found a place in my heart or something. I would still
Hmm.
do videos because, now I have another skill. If I'm getting an assignment, can you cover a story for Al Jazeera or BBC for 2 days and you get really paid well? Why not? I'll do it. But if it comes to my personal project, I don't want to give just all the precise information about the project. I want viewers to feel. I want viewers to probably interpret their own version of it. I will let people see themselves in that stories. If I'm giving everything, it will just become about those two girls. That's how I see it. If I will provide every detail of their life, they will not be able to see themselves in those girls, and that's where my project fails. So at the same time, I like this idea of putting audio in the project, because then you're giving a little more detail, what their ambience is. But suppose if I have to make like an exact documentary about these two girls, how Manisha and Babita live, I think I won't do it. No, no. So it's good to have that skill, but it's not something which I want to mix with my, at least my personal projects.
Mhm. Actually, initially I was also thinking the same thing, but there are many genres in documentary photography too. I mean, you can make a poetic documentary, you can make informative documentary.
Right, right,
So yeah, so the documentary which I am doing, that is not informative.
right,
That is mostly candidly. I'm following one of my friend,
right,
and as you said, I don't want to give lot of information through that documentary.
right,
I want to make people curious, more curious about that person and about that person's work.
right.
So let's see what happens. But yeah, I agree
Yeah,
with you. Yeah,
I think it's again very intriguing medium. Just the power it has to tell the story in 2 minutes and 3 minutes. I think that's another kind of power and freedom you can have, and it might work really well for some of the stories. But I just don't see those my project so far being in that kind of documentary phase. But if you want, have a look at this DMJX ka video thing. I'll send you a link. Some of
yeah,
the documentaries are so beautifully done there. I just love the way people find ways to tell the stories in 2 minutes. It has its own beauty. It just hasn't found a place in my heart so far.
yeah.
So would you consider doing those on a assignment? Have you been asked?
Yes, yes, definitely. Like if I'm getting good money for 2 days doing a video document, I mean that was the whole purpose of me actually learning that in DNJX. Just
So
let's just another skill as a freelancer, because it's important to keep yourself versatile and do these assignments to fund your personal work.
okay. Any other questions?
Yeah. You want to ask somebody?
Jayati wanted to ask something.
Yeah, yes.
Dipti, how do you travel to these remote villages? I mean, do you travel alone? Do you find somebody locally to take you to those villages?
No, I'm always traveling alone, and I think I have found this comfort, to be on my own, no matter how remote it is. Probably there will be few places which might be daunting for me, but otherwise I feel, completely okay and safe to be on my own. If I just find this one place to live, that's how I usually start. That I try to find just one place to live, and then go forward from there. So it's not very planned way to travel. I think when I was starting out as a traveler, I was very underconfident, and I'll probably make this whole Excel sheet and day wise plan. Day one, I'm gonna do this. Day two, I'm gonna do this. And also to keep my family sane and send out that Excel sheet and all the contact information. But I think over the years, I have gained that confidence that I can just work on the fly. I can do one way ticket, find one place to start from somewhere, and then when you are talking to people, one thing leads to another thing, and then you can always find ways to reach somewhere. because there are, there are public transports everywhere, there are people living everywhere, and I don't think the world is that dangerous as much as we tend to feel. I always feel that cities are more dangerous. Like, I would be so terrified traveling in Delhi after 10 o'clock. I really have to send in my information that where I am to my family when I'm in Delhi. But as soon as I'm out, I feel like much more relaxed. I feel like I'm much more safe. So it really depends on the place, but I also feel that it's okay to travel on your own. It's just, you really, I also feel like, and as a woman, we have, we have, we kind of develop this sixth sense that we have this superpower to, feel that, what other person is thinking, or how, where, where can I take risk or where can I not take risk. Because as a photographer, you cannot keep yourself close. You have to be open to people, whether it's men or whether it's women. If you're going to keep yourself closed, you will never lead to the right situation and right places and right stories. So I know that I'm taking risks all the time, but thankfully it has been a very smooth journey in that way. I have not been in troubles much. There has been only one or two exceptions, and I think I have talked about it, especially that holy incident. And I think everyone is know. It just felt that I really needed to talk about it. Otherwise, and that's again, that situation where there are a lot of people. The places where I'm going, there are usually lesser people, and they're much more well behaved.
Okay.
Sharmisha, you wanted to say something?
There is,
Jesse, any questions on YouTube
I
which
have,
you'd like to put?
I, sir, I have a couple of questions, but there's one interesting question that is coming from Rudra again, and I think he asked in reference to the previous project that you showed, but probably will fit in for almost every project that you do with women. And he says that I really want to know how about the reaction of their relatives or their families after the publication of the story. Like the relatives or the villagers take it as a proud moment or they take it as a shame. So how do they
Um,
take it?
in the case of Daughters of Dunes, that's a story which is published in very very, the newspaper kind of outlet, and they showed around to all their family members, and these are the smaller places, so the news, go like a fire, and everyone knows the story has been published, and that has been very encouraging reaction from the people, and suddenly these women are being seen as more respected people in the community. So I also had the same question, like how do they feel about, their, because the women are not allowed to show their faces when they are married. They are really not allowed to show their faces to other men, and this kind of construct is also there. But thankfully the reaction from their family was very very encouraging. The story of the other two teenager girls, it has not been published, and I have not really tried to aggressively publish it, because I think that's a story which I'll probably like to do in a longer time, because I'm very interested to see that what's going to happen in their lives. They are now teenagers, probably they'll go for higher education. I mean, I don't know what's gonna happen, that how that story is gonna evolve. So for me, it's better to watch and wait that how it evolves, and then probably find the right way to put it across.
Right, right, great. And there is one question that has been coming in my mind. I think Jayati asked part of that probably, but let me still ask that because once you are a girl, so when you approach these girls, it becomes very easy to get their secrets out, so they confide in you. But this is just one aspect of your probably this is the beginning of how you start your project. And but the moment that you share that these images are going to get published somewhere or even on some social media, what is their reaction? And not only pertaining to only couple of stories that you've shared, as an overall reaction. And do you find it difficult to convince them to agree to getting these images published at any stage of time in future, or is it difficult?
No, I don't think it's difficult, and I really don't have to convince them. I really need their full agreement. As I said, that I see it as a collaborative project. So I keep it very open and honest from the day one, that this is what I do and this is what I am doing. I don't want to keep any hidden secret layer and stuff there. At the beginning, I might not know how exactly it will be used. I'm just telling them that I'm the photographer. What I do is I tell women's story, and this is how I do it through my photos and my pictures. There could be some point that these photos can go to a magazine and newspaper. At that time, I don't really know if it can actually go to exhibition, or if it can take a book, a form of a book, or something else. I don't really know. So as much information as I have, I tell them very precisely, because it, again, it's a purpose for me to tell their stories, and they should be happy. If they are not happy, if they have any kind of discomfort, I'm kind of failing in my purpose there. So I need to be very honest, very straightforward. If if they would have said no, I wouldn't have pushed them, I wouldn't have told them. But I try to tell them as clearly as possible. Sometimes they might not understand it fully, but I try to make them understand. And thankfully, in that case, some of those women are on Instagram, and they like their own pictures and stuff, so they exactly know what's happening, and that is so much peace for me that I can sleep peacefully. I don't have any hidden layers there.
Good. And there's another question that I just thought of asking you, that how did this, see, photography changes people. And we've seen almost everybody mention that, and whenever we hear somebody's story, either on this platform or anywhere. But my question is that photography would have influenced your the way you behave and the way you come out right now as an individual. But how did documentary photography really kind of bring about the changes in you, and did it impact your life in any way? And do you relate to that?
I don't know. I think my life has become something else. I mean, I'm the person who would be so shy that I will not go up to any people and talk to them. I'm the person who's so shy that I will not walk to my own mom and ask her what I want to ask. I will not put my opinions even on the dining table while we are having dinner. So I've been that kind of person all my life. And then suddenly, when photography came into my life, and then when I started going out doing the stories, meeting these women, it's kind of very funny that I am not telling their stories, and I'm not giving the platform to empower. They are empowering me, because I am finding courage every day to see them. I find gratitude towards my life, because I feel that their problems are much more bigger than I can. Because I'm like a complete crybaby. I would cry about my problems all the time, but when I meet them, I feel like I should really feel thankful the life I'm living, because not many people have this life. They can't. I'm sure, like for many girls, this could be a dream. What the life I'm living, and it would have always been a dream for me. So my whole personality com- got completely changed because of photography, and it's just not about one facet. It's about everything. How I have become much more independent. How I've kind of got the position in the family that I can be a decision maker. I can not just take my decision, but I can also help you to take your decisions. I'm now the person who is planning all the family holidays and sending them the travel itineraries, and they have this 100% trust on me. And they've always seen me the person who is like completely irresponsible. So the whole equation around me is just changing so fast within 4 years. I think if I have not been in photography, the same equation would have changed, but in a much more slower pace. So everything has been so expedite in my life because of photography. The exposure I have got, the people I have met, like meeting people, like even Dinesh sir would have been like such a big dream in my life, that to meet a photographer who is so senior, who has done so much of work. And now I meet him so often, I talk to him, face to face. That's such a dream for me in that sense, because meeting all these people, it's such a dream. I've never imagined that I could live a life like that. So I will always be thankful to photography and all these women who give me courage rather than I, giving them a platform or something like that. So I always see it like this.
Wonderful. Thank you. Really good.
Thank you.
Dinesh, sir.
Anyone else has any questions? I am overwhelmed and I don't have any more questions unless Deepti wants to talk more. And I can't, of course, believe that you were at any time shy and reticent, but obviously your journey has been so impactful. And more importantly, you are impacting so many people around you. It's what you're doing really is you're working like a magnet and a sounding board at the same time. You're attracting people like yourself, and then you are as a sounding board for them and they're a sounding board for you. And I always say, that you get two like-minded people together. It's not 1 + 2, 1 is equal to 2. It's an exponential growth. You get 5, like-minded people together, and you have 50 as an answer. You don't have. So that's what is happening with your life. One question as a parent I want to ask you is that, so what does your mother feel? And how does she? I have a daughter like you, who's just gone off on her own, and I'm her biggest fan. So what does your mom feel?
So my mom and I have a very complicated equation. I
Mhm.
feel so that and I have a huge respect for her that she has played this part of father. She's the person who has seen so many difficulties in life, but at the same time I have a lot of anger in me about certain things. But it's not the anger directed towards her, it's a anger directed towards society, that how it changes a mother's behavior towards a daughter. Suddenly you become so protective and you want to kind of ensure that I always remain safe. So it was a lot of struggle in the beginning to kind of make her understand what I do and why I do. I don't think she completely understand even now. She is not very yeah, she's not on Instagram or WhatsApp or something. So it's very difficult for her to understand the full extent of photography. But I think my brother becomes that person mediator who will keep telling her, she has got this award, she has got this grant, because I can't call her and tell her, oh, I've got this. So sometimes I think it becomes very important, not for me, but for my mother, that I win these things, I get some award, so that she stays happy and she feels that okay, I think she's gonna live a good life, and yeah, she's doing okay in life. So now I think she has come to that point that she understands the decisions I have made are good, and I am kind of doing work which is important, and because people are recognizing it. So now she only worries about safety sometimes, but I have asked her not to call me and make me terrified, because initially she used to call me, why are you in this village, what happens if something happens, she'll be in panic mode. So and that will affect me a lot, so I'll tell her not to do that. Sometimes she doesn't even know most of the time where I'm traveling. I travel and come back, and I tell her, okay, I went there and I've come back now. So it's I mean, it's very natural that she doesn't understand the full facet of it, but I think she's very happy and comfortable with what I do now.
Wonderful. Sharmisha wanted to say something.
I think why she does this, because probably she's single-handedly raised you, so she's overly protective. So I think now that you're doing so much work, I think you should make it a point that call her and tell her, listen, I got this, and show you, probably get her onto Instagram or something like that, make an account, and
So
that
it's very funny. It's a very funny that I got all these awards which are like bigger in nature.
you should probably also take your mother along to some expedition. I did that once and she's very happy. My mom was I think you should really involve her in your work. I
I
think
mean, soon I'm gonna do a project which will be on her. That will happen someday, and I think that will be my conversation starter. We are not really a family who will have all these kind of sensitive conversation, but that will be in store for someday, and that will probably open up new gateways for us to be on the same ground. But it's a very funny thing that I get all these net geo grant and everything, and she doesn't really understand and recognize. But I think in February I got this trophy, where they were recognizing these 12 women from different field in Pune. It was a very commercial award, but the good thing is they gave this physical trophy, which was this gold and shining trophy. So that is the award which is like most dear to her, because now that she can see and feel, everything, whatever is happening is online, that doesn't matter to her. She's like, now this is good, now you're doing something. So in that sense, she kind of feels proud. Yeah.
हम लोग सब एक इस टाइप की ना गोल्डन ट्रॉफी आपको भिजवाते हैं, मतलब पीछे लोगों ने दे दी है.
No, like the only time my mom asked me for a print to put up in her house is a photograph I shot in the Golden Temple in Amritsar. And she actually said to me, "एक तो चंगी photo तो है." Because she was Sardarni and she could relate to it, and like what
Yeah.
Sadhguru was saying,
Yeah.
that's what's important. Each one of us comes from our own points of reference.
Right.
And,
Right.
but
So
wonderful.
now,
Thank you so much for this really, from the heart and such a frank and open presentation. I don't have much more to ask, and I would now leave it to Jassi to take this forward or to wind it up. But thank you so much, Deepti.
Thank you so much, Deepti, and that was really insightful, and getting to know, as Sriran said, that you come out as a very honest person, and that is visible in your imagery that you have created, the documentary that you have created, and that really is strikingly visible. And I think thank you very much for accepting to be here, and thank you, Dinesh sir, for really accepting to be the moderator. And I think there couldn't have been anybody better than you actually taking this discussion forward.
Entirely an honor for me.
thank you so much. It's really a pleasure and honor to talk here and get to know some of you. I really hope the suggestion gets over and we get to meet face to face and probably hang out in a real time rather than being on these virtual screens. It was really nice to be here. Thank you so much. Thank you.
When we meet, we certainly will not be compartmentalized like
Please.
moonlight. So we will be sitting together.
You might have to sit on different tables in a restaurant.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you,
It'll
Sriran.
be different kind of boxes.
Thank you, Sharmishta. Thank you, Indrajit. And thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Bye-bye.
Bye. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.